Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And the good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. Here's the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful October the 30th, 2020. Gone to the Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we got fall that's in the air, but records are falling in the state of Texas, Charlton. Already over 9 million Texas residents have voted.
Wow.
Which is more than voted in the 2016 presidential campaign. But
That's
I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. They're always voting for better health in America.
Always voting. That's a lot of people, Big C. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars never stop arriving. Also, all over the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Big C, one more Friday to pause. It's the last Friday to pause before the election of 2020, and I hope that people have gone out to vote. Don't keep saying, oh, you're going to do it sometime soon. You got to do it now. Big C, I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, the National Suicide Prevention Help Hotline number will help all Americans.
Yep.
We lose some 24 veterans a day to suicide. Not, accounting for those that we have lost during this pandemic. Over 11,000 veterans have succumbed to COVID-19, Charlton. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is a way to hopefully stem suicide in this country.
Yeah.
During this battle for the Oval Office, Charlton, we hear nobody talking about what they're going to do to help the veterans and to help to stop the suicide rate in America. I mean, we've had a little talk about COVID-19, but suicide was around long before COVID-19 and will be there long afterwards, Charlton, because our veterans suffer from mental, physical, and financial disabilities in this country, and they always feel they have no way out. We got to do more as a conservative country to help them, Charlton, to give our aid and assistance to these great veterans who have served their country. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. We need it to be more of a concerted effort amongst all Americans.
And we will do our part. Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get to some help. Also, I'm very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run leader Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to put people back to work, just like car dealerships do it. McDonald's does it. Sports teams are doing it. You can watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624, and get opportunities there. For opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and get opportunities anywhere in the world. Big C, most people have a cell phone. I mean, some people even take it to the bathroom. I don't know why they need the cell phone in the bathroom, but people do what they got to do. While you're in the bathroom or walking around, no matter what you're doing, open the phone, and turn on the app and just say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see apps pop up, whether it's iHeartRadio Podcast, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, so many apps, and I really appreciate it. And just download the app, and you can hear Big C Stars 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You guys, make sure you vote. You got to get registered. Text the word VOTE, 26797. Text the word VOTE to 26797. Get registered. Tell all your friends that Big C and the NFL said do it. Big C, is there anybody who hasn't voted yet? Big C, your thoughts?
Oh, Charlton, I mean, about 62% of the country has voted thus far. So we're still a long way from being finished on that.
Yeah, they got to get out and do it. But if you're not registered, they'll let you do it. I know a lot of people are getting ready for games. As you're getting ready for the games, I want you to enjoy the Big C Burger. It really is a tasty burger. You get exotic meats on your Big C Burger, and you get it at participating restaurants. Also, enjoy Budweiser Zero with 0% alcohol. It tastes great also with the Big C Burger. So, Big C, before we get to Big C's NFL thoughts, there's a final push on Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. The vote, I hear, is going to hit about 100 million people before Tuesday's election day. Give me your feeling on how things are going down south. Are people much more motivated than we thought they'd be? Big C, your thoughts?
There's been record numbers of turnout in the South, Charlton, as well as all over the country. I mean, as of tonight, we have over 83 million Americans that have voted. That's a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Regardless of which party that you're voting for, it shows American involvement. And this is the only way that you can ever gain equality in society, is that everyone is allowed to participate.
Yeah, everybody get out and do your thing. It's your civic duty. If you don't vote, then don't complain. It's all fair in love and war. I want to get into Big C's NFL football Week 8. Man, there's a lot of good things shaping up. Big C, we're halfway through the season. It's like it goes by so fast, kind of like eating the Big C Burger. Big C, we have a big game. It's a really big game for so many reasons. The New England Patriots, they are 2-4. They're at the Buffalo Bills that are 5-2. This is a Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time on CBS Sports. And Las Vegas has the Buffalo Bills by 3.5. Big C, your thoughts?
And I can see that that's realistic. When you look at the New England Patriots, Charlton, the covers are bare in New England. This is the worst start that the Patriots had since Bill Belichick's first year with the organization. They just devoid of talent. They're without any receivers going into this game. The defense is a shamble of what it's been in years past. And the Buffalo Bills has the ability to get on the scoreboard. I know they struggled in their last couple of games. Josh Allen needs to wake up and see if he can score some touchdowns. The Jets held them without a touchdown last week. And if they have a duplicate performance of that, then New England can get off that losing track that they're on.
Yeah, in Buffalo, they got to get Devin Singletary. He has to find some success on the ground and stopping the Patriots. Running backs will be a really big difference in that game. I'm really looking forward to that contest up in the great Northeast. They're almost to Canada, Big C. Another great game. The Tennessee Titans is a really great game. They got to get off the snide. They had one loss, Big C. Their last loss, and they don't like the way it tastes, Big C. Lose is not a good feeling. They're 5-1 at the Cincinnati Bengals that are 1-5-1. It's a 1 o'clock p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And Big C, the Titans are only favored by 5, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the Bengals, they're coming off their best performance of the season last week.
Yeah.
They were in a back-and-forth battle against the Cleveland Browns. And that game had 3 lead changes in the fourth quarter, and the Browns took the final lead with less than 30 seconds to go in the game. Joe Burrow passed for over 400 yards. So he's got to have another big game. He's got to duplicate that against the Tennessee Titans. When you look at the Titans, their offense has not been stopped all year.
Yeah.
You know, they lost that game last week by a missed field goal that did not allow them to go into overtime.
Yep.
But when you look at what they're able to do offensively, led by Ryan Tannehill, who's been one of the surprise quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 18 games, he's just been phenomenal. And they have to find a way to get Derrick Henry on track. The Steelers held him under 100 yards last week.
Yep.
He can't allow that against this paltry Cincinnati defense.
And the Titans have put up 31 or more points in 4 of the first 5 games. They got to get that ball back in the hands of Henry. Big C, another game that used to be a big game back in the day, the Las Vegas Raiders, they are 3-3 at the Cleveland Browns that are 5-2. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. In Las Vegas, if that makes sense to you, they have the Browns favored by 3 over their hometown team. Big C, your thoughts?
And I like the Browns in this game. I mean, with Odell Beckham out of the lineup, it makes the Browns a much more balanced offense. Then you don't walk out there as a young quarterback in Baker Mayfield trying to figure out how do you get the ball to Odell Beckham to keep him pacified.
Yeah.
You don't have that crybaby in the lineup. Now you can rely more on your running game. If Chubb is not in, you know that Kareem Hunt is very capable. But the receiving core that Cleveland has is very balanced. And you saw Baker coming off that 5-touchdown performance that he had last week against Cincinnati. The Raiders have been on hiatus a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't know where their offensive line is going to be coming into this game, Charlton. Derek Carr, he needs to have a big game to try to keep them on track with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and Gruden's making a $100 million contract, and they're 3-3 going into the Browns. Big C. It's all fair and level war. The Indianapolis Colts, they are 4-2. They're at the surging Detroit Lions. They're 3-3. It's a TV kickoff at 1 o'clock p.m. East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports, and the Colts are a 2.5-point favorite. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Detroit Lions are elated, Charlton. They've already matched their win total from last year, so already the season is a wash for them.
Yeah, they're happy.
You think about the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that was riding real high a couple of weeks ago with the best defense in the league. They showed some kinks in the armor. Phillip Rivers has to come out and have an outstanding game. He cannot afford to turn the ball over via interceptions to the Detroit Lions and allowing Matt Stafford to stay in this game.
Yep.
Not Sonny Michel, but the rookie running back out of Georgia, Swift, DeAndre Swift.
He's good.
He has to have a big game for the Detroit Lions to slow down that Indianapolis offense.
Yeah, they want to lean on Swift to establish that run game. Big C, what used to be the biggest game in this division, Big C, you have the Minnesota Vikings that are 1-5 on the season. They're at the Green Bay Packers that are 5-1 at Lambeau Field. It's a TV kickoff, 1 o'clock p.m. East Coast time, Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Packers are favored by 7, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know what your cousin is thinking coming into this game for the Vikings, Charlton.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's rolling the dice on how many interceptions versus touchdowns that he'll throw.
Yeah.
But the Green Bay Packers will throttle the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that's in total disarray. They're 1-5 coming into this game, Charlton. They don't have a chance against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers will still be on his MVP stage when this game is over.
Yeah, the Packers just got to keep Kirk Cousins from handing off the football. They want him to pass it, Big C, but he'll probably try to hand off to keep the score down, if that makes sense to you. I feel bad for Joe Namath. The Jets have not won a Super Bowl since way back when Broadway Joe took it in from the goal line, Big C, way back in the day. The Jets are 0-7. They're at the defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. They're 6-1. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time, Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Chiefs are favored by 19.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Sometimes that's a sucker bet, Charlton.
Yeah.
When you look at this game, you got to think about a Pop Warner game that you might want to have a running clock.
Yeah.
And you might want to have a mercy rule when it comes to this. This is the game that you're not even sure if the New York Jets can score. And Sam Darnold, I'm not sure if he's gone to an ophthalmologist or not. I'm not sure whether he's colorblind. But you got to remember, the Chiefs are red and he's green.
Yeah, be careful of making fun of guys that get mononucleosis. I hear it affects the way you see things. If that makes sense to you, everything that look good ain't always good. I'm looking for a good win by the Chiefs, but 19.5 points, that's an awful lot, Big C. The Rams and the Dolphins. When you think about Rams and Dolphins, please enjoy the Big C burger. It really is a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. The Rams are 5-2. They're flying all the way across the country, Big C, to play the Miami Dolphins that are 3-3. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday, East Coast time on Fox Sports. And the Rams, after traveling 3,000 miles, are favored by 3.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they've logged more miles, Charlton, than any team in the NFL this year. This is their third trip to the East Coast.
Yeah.
But this is a plus-minus game for the Miami Dolphins. It's a plus that they're starting Tua Tagovailoa, but it's a minus because they're starting him against the second-best quarterback sacking team in the NFL. So I'm not so sure about the Miami Dolphins' credentials in this game. Jared Goff needs to have a big game, but I don't know if Tua's ready for prime time yet. The Rams' running game should be enough just to throttle the Miami Dolphins.
Big C, if he gets off to a shaky start, it's tough when you go from practice to playing against the guys that make money to sack you and tackle you. if he were to struggle, would they ever consider taking him out, or are they going to ride with him all the way, Big C? Your thoughts?
They would have to consider taking him out, Charlton, because I don't know if he has the mobility to elude the Rams' pass rush.
Yeah.
They're going to blitz him. They're going to show him a lot of different looks that he is not accustomed to seeing on the sideline, and that's what you do against a rookie starter. You throw the whole house at him, play some man coverage, and force him to throw the ball down the field, Charlton. He only completed two passes in his first game that he got into.
Yeah, it might be a tough day for him, but we'll see what happens. It's hard when the Dolphins trying to outrun a Ram, especially when they're on land, if that makes sense to you. The Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they got to be feeling themselves. I told you this is Pittsburgh Steelers Part 2. The Steelers are 6-0. They're at the Baltimore Ravens, 5-1. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And Big C, the Ravens are favored by 4. That means they better get the lead early, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they're definitely going to have to get the lead early. When you think about starting quarterback in the NFL, Lamar Jackson ranks last in yards passing. So this is a team that is not built to come from behind. They really don't have that big-time receiver. But on the flip side, when you look at Pittsburgh, they have a wealth of receivers. They have 2 solid running backs that can get the ball up and down the field. But when you look at this series between the Steelers and the Ravens, it's never about the offense. It's always about the defense between these two teams.
Yeah.
These are teams that have always had budding superstars on defense that have laid the groundwork for outstanding hitting. This is not about style. This is about knockouts, Charlton.
Yep, it's about knockouts. And again, no disrespect to Mean Joe Green, but this Steelers defense looks very, very good, especially in the first half. I really can't wait to see that game. Another big game that used to be a really big game on the West Coast, Big C, the LA Chargers. They are 2-4. They're at the Denver Broncos that are also 2-4. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Chargers are flying into Mile High, and they're getting 3 points, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the way that the young quarterback Herbert has played, I mean, as John Elway scratching his head.
Yeah.
He took Drew Lock last year in the second round thinking that was the future of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
He has not delivered as of yet. I mean, he played some meaningless games at the end of last season. Everybody thought he looked semi-good, but now when the games really matter, they see his true metal put on the mantle.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the Chargers, their defense has been beat up all year long.
Yeah.
Ingram has not been healthy. Bosa's not been healthy. They've been without James. So when you look at the Chargers, they're vulnerable on defense, but Herbert has kept them in all the games that they played this year.
Yeah, and he needs to know where Keenan Allen is and tight end Hunter Henry. I think the Chargers, they're the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, that only has 2 wins. If they could just kick the ball, they'd probably be looking at least 4-2 on the season right now. It's all fair and love and war. Here's another big game, especially with playoff implications. The New Orleans Saints, Big C, them good old boys are 4-2. They're at the Chicago Bears 5-2, so they'll be out of the eye of the storm that hit down in New Orleans, Big C. It's a Sunday kickoff at 4:25 p.m. East Coast time on Fox Sports, and the Saints have left the eye of the storm flying into the Windy City, and they're favored by 4, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is a game that the Saints need to get their receiving core back, Charlton. They've been on the gimp all year long, and that's been the uncertainty part about their offense. Alvin Kamara is playing at an all-star pace.
Yeah.
The defense has been pretty good in New Orleans. But when you flip it over to Chicago, that's all they have is defense.
Yep.
They're still unsettled at quarterback. Nick Foles has not delivered what they thought he would when they inserted him into the starting lineup. He had the good come-from-behind victory against Atlanta. But since that point, Charlton, he's been very sketchy.
Yeah.
And so the Bears are uncertain, and I like the Saints in this game.
Yeah, you like the Saints, but Drew Brees has to know where Khalil Mack is lighted up and Robert Quinn. Them good old boys are coming to eat. Should be a fantastic game. Big C, another game that has so many playoff implications on the West Coast. We have the San Francisco 49ers. They are 4-3. Think about this, on the road at the Seattle Seahawks 5-1. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff East Coast time Sunday on the Fox Sports, and the Seahawks are favored by 3. Big C, your thoughts?
Seahawks, once again, another team that's struggling defensively. They're putting so much pressure on Russell Wilson. He's going to be without Chris Carson, his star running back. You know, his receiving core has been outstanding. He's still leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 22. But when you look at last weekend, the 49ers went into that weekend 3 games out of first place.
Yeah.
They come into this game this week against Seattle only 2 games out of first place. The winner of this game most likely will win the AFC West, Charlton. Seattle's been out. San Francisco's been outstanding defensively. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
Very mobile core of young linebackers. Jimmy Garoppolo just has to play steady football and not commit any turnovers. The 49ers can take down the Seattle Seahawks, and they can drop 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, in the NFC West, Big C, I'm looking at this. It really matters on defense, in my opinion. If the Seahawks can force Jimmy G to throw, and that's going to help them a lot. And then Jamal Adams, if he can recover in time for the game, we'll see what happens. He's a solid player on defense, and Seattle really needs that. Can't wait to see that game, Big C. I kind of feel bad for Jerry Jones because when you got I don't feel bad. He's a billionaire, so let me not feel bad for him. The Cowboys, they're 2-5. They are at the Eagles, 2-4-1, and it's an 8:20 p.m. kickoff Sunday, East Coast time on NBC. Big C, the Eagles are favored by 9. The Cowboys are really struggling. Your thoughts?
Well, right now, Jerry Jones is looking at his watch saying, okay, what time does the game start? What time does the game end? What time will we get back to Dallas? Who can I trade after that?
Yeah.
The Eagles will wipe the floor with the Cowboys.
Yeah, it's amazing. The Eagles are a pretty good-looking team, but they're only 2-4-1. It's amazing how that tie game they had earlier in the year is better than the loss, of course, for anybody. But we'll see what happens. If the Cowboys, they may even try to find Roger Staubach to play quarterback. From what I understand, some rumors coming out of Dallas is all fair and level war. Big C, the final game is a team that's looking really good. And when you look good going into New York City, man, sometimes you got to hold on to your hat. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are 5-2 on the season. They're going up north to the New York Giants that are only 1-6. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff. East Coast time on Monday Night Football. ESPN has the coverage. There is no line on the game, but you would think that Tampa could go into New York and at least win by 10 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the line on the game is how many times will Daniel Jones fumble in the game. Now, if you go back to last year, this is when Daniel Jones got his first start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and miraculously pulled out a win. He had 2 rushing touchdowns that made the difference in the game. This is not that same defense, though, Charlton. This Tampa Bay defense probably is the best defense metric-wise right now in the NFL. And they're facing a Giants offensive line that is COVID-ridden and beat up.
Yeah.
So, Daniel Jones just should be going to mass, and I don't know if daylight saving time will save it in this game.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It'd be amazing if they got upset. They've upset Tom Brady before. The New York Giants have. There's something about those blue helmets that he always tends to panic a little bit. Cost them 2 Super Bowl championships. We'll see if they can bring out the ghost from New York. Congratulations to everybody making it through Week 8 healthy. Looking forward to a great football weekend. I want to also touch on a few more things NFL related. Myron Rolle, former NFL safety turned doctor, is concerned about COVID-19 in sports. He's a neurosurgery resident, said if health was a priority, the NFL would have invested in a bubble, Big C, like what the NBA did. It would have been a Herculean task, but he thinks it could have been done if there was a priority for health. And Myron Rolle said that. The NFL can organize Super Bowls. They can do combines. They can organize draft, Big C. They make more money than any sport in the United States. He thinks it would be possible if they could have done that if they cared more about the health of players than money, Big C. Your thoughts?
It would have been very easily for the NFL to do that, Charlton. When you look at the number of dome stadiums that are regionally around the nation, Charlton, the NFL could have easily put teams in several cities and kept those teams in those cities, Charlton, and played only in those dome stadiums if they had chose to do that. The NFL chose not to do that, Charlton, because they didn't want to spend any extra money. When they're crying about the salary cap, they're also going to cry about the amount of money that they would have to spend extra to protect players.
Yeah.
They always feel that they have a rotatable commodity, Charlton, that they can always find players. They hope to keep their superstars healthy, but the rest of the players in the league are expendable. And Myron Rolle said it right, Charlton, that the NFL really didn't give a damn about the health of the players. Yeah,
they're about a $15 billion industry, and you can buy a lot of replacements with $15 billion that you can't always get when you don't have them. Think about it also, just adding on to what we talked about and Big C's thoughts on the kickoffs for the Week 8 of the NFL. First place in the AFC North is not the only battle being waged Sunday. When the Baltimore Ravens, they play host to the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, these division rivals are staking an early claim to another title. We talk about the Steel Curtain, Big C. the best defense in the NFL. The Steelers still curtain part 2. They rank number 1 in fewest yards allowed. The Ravens rank number 1 in fewest points given up. Big C, your thoughts?
And you think about that, they're undefeated, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The
Yep.
Ravens have that one loss. And when you think about the teams that the Ravens lose to, Charles,
Yep.
they're good teams that they lose to. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. But when teams have high-powered offense, the Ravens struggle. When you think about when they lost last year in the playoffs to Tennessee, Tennessee just went and took it to them, outscored them.
Yeah.
You think about when they lost to Kansas City earlier this year, Charles. Kansas City outscored them. They took it to that defense. And so when you think about this Pittsburgh Steelers offense that has scored at least 23 points in every game this season, it seems like the Baltimore Ravens will struggle against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, it's all fair and love and war. You play to win the game. Speaking of playing to win the game, seizing up Big C, sizing up the NFC North. Who's surprising or disappointing more when you think about it? The Green Bay Packers are still dominant. The Chicago Bears still have quarterback issues. Well, who would have thought the Vikings would have been just off of a 10-6 season that ended in the second week of the playoffs last year? Who would have thought they would be 1-5 when they were signing Kirk Cousins to that massive contract? Or the Detroit Lions would have already matched their 2019 win total. They have 3 wins. That's just a third of what Caldwell had before they fired him. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this division is what this division is. You know, Aaron Rodgers has been outstanding.
Yeah.
You can't say that about the rest of the quarterbacks in this division. You talked about Chicago. They're on their second quarterback of the season and still might be looking for a third as Nick Foles keeps playing the way that he's playing.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford has had a couple of decent games in the past couple of weeks, which has gotten the Lions to 500 with their 3 victories. But your cousin in Minnesota got another big contract offer and said, let me see how many interceptions can I throw.
Hey, sometimes when you give somebody 2 Big C burgers, they're too full to eat the third Big C burger. Big C, it's all fair in love and war. I want to ask you also, before we come up on the Big C pause, when you think about the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles, you know, this is no more Donovan McNabb's Philadelphia Eagles, and it's no longer Troy Aikman's or Dak Prescott's Dallas Cowboys. But which team is set up for success in the NFC East, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at where the Philadelphia Eagles are, Charlton, they just seem to be a more well-rounded team. But both of these teams lack in key areas. I mean, both of them have had a massive injuries on their offensive line. But I think the difference between these two teams is at the quarterback position. When you look at the kid there in Philadelphia,
yeah,
he is a much better quarterback than anything that Dallas can throw out on the field. And the guys on defense in Philadelphia have to play with a little more sense of urgency. I see guys on the Philadelphia side willing to make tackles.
Yeah.
But when you look at Carson Wentz, he's been making the big plays as of late, something that Dallas offense totally lacks, and they don't seem to want to play Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, they're trying to save him up, but maybe he doesn't want to play because he realizes they can't block. See, why would he get himself hurt? Like Richard Price said, he had a guy that was a boxer, and he was in really good shape, and he was boxing this guy that looked like he just beat up everybody in front of him, and he wouldn't go down, and his leg said, why you want to make us look bad? We're not the one taking a whipping. It's all fair. 11 war Ezekiel Elliott's protecting his legs. But when you think about this, the Eagles, they're 2-4-1. Would you believe they're the first team since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger to lead a division into Week 7 with 2 or fewer wins? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that shows you how paltry that division is, Charlton. That division is still up for grabs 7 weeks in the season.
Yeah.
There's no dominant favorite, even though I like the Philadelphia Eagles at this point, Charlton, to win the division because, you know, when you look at everybody who's behind them, the Giants, the Eagles, the Washington Football Club,
yep.
You know, the Dallas Cowboys, the Eagles are a half game ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
If they win this game against Dallas, they're a game and a half ahead of this division and maybe coasting home from there.
Yeah, like the great Michael Jordan said, the ceiling is the roof, but right now the ceiling's pretty close to the floor. Big C, your thoughts?
It is close to the floor. You know, what's sad about the NFL in this state that we're in now, Charlton, is that the divisional leader in the East will have no more than 7 victories at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's not football like it was back in the day where you had more than 2 wins after 7 weeks. It's all fair and level war. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about some football. And please, if you haven't voted now, forever hold your peace. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I want to stick with the NFL before we get to some other sports, college football, of course. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were supposed to be a good football team in 2020. They added the greatest arm of all time in quarterback Tom Brady, and it's looking good so far. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, they are, Charlton. I mean, Tom Brady has delivered on what they brought him in for, Charlton, to cut down on the turnovers offensively through interceptions and be more of a leader in that offense. And when you look at what Tom has done on several occasions this year, exceeding 300 yards passing in the game and multiple touchdown games, Charlton, he only has 4 interceptions on the season.
Yeah.
And when you think about that great defense in Tampa, that's a recipe for winning.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's played a lot better than I thought he would, because his last pass up in the Northeast when he played for the Patriots, it was an interception. And now he's throwing a lot of touchdowns because he has better receivers. Could you imagine had he stayed in New England? They probably wouldn't have been any better, Big C. The whole crew is banged up, so sometimes seeing what you have and moving out is a lot better than staying there trying to make it better. So when you think about Tampa, they're now #1 in the Football Outsiders, like defense adjusted value over average ratings, and the Buccaneers are #1 by a large margin. The gap between the Buccaneers and the #2 Baltimore Ravens is equal to the gap between the Ravens and the #7 Los Angeles Rams. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at that linebacking core in Tampa Bay, Charlton, they are outstanding. I mean, David is probably one of the top 3 linebackers in the NFL. And when you look at the secondary, it's played by a rookie, Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
His dad played for the Vikings decades ago.
Yep.
But he's a chip off the old block. And that offense has been putting up big numbers to help that defense out. Not a lot of 3-and-outs with the 30 interceptions that they had last year. And they're reciprocating it back to the offense by shutting down their opponents.
Yeah.
But when you think about where they're ranking, Charlton, when they're ranking in the same level as the 85 Bears, you got to give a whole lot of credit to Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, a guy that the New York Jets said wasn't good enough, and they hired Adam Gates. I wonder what the Jets are thinking about that now when you look at Tampa's defense and the Jets' defense.
Yeah, and also, and when you look at Bowles, Big C, I think he had his most wins in New York was 10 wins. And the way the Jets are playing, it might take them another 10 years to get the 10 wins, if that makes sense to you. But I want to ask you something, because you brought up a name in the 85 Bears, and people always want to say, when you think about great defense in the NFL, you are looking at the 85 Bears. People got to realize the 85 Bears were amazing. Their offense by Jim McMahon were nowhere near as good as what the Buccaneers are using right now. They were pretty much, I would say, 70% defense, 30% offense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a lot of great teams in the NFL have been led by their defense. I mean, offense is always going to get the storyline, just like when you look at the Steelers-Ravens rivalry.
Yeah.
But when you look at that series, Charlton, it's all about the players on defense. You can't sit there and name a dozen players in the last 10 years that meant anything offensively, but you can do that about the players on defense, the guys who were going to make the big plays in the game. They were going to turn around the direction of the game.
Yeah.
That's the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense has been playing the last half of last season and the first half of this season.
Yeah, so they're good defense. We'll see how things hold up for them. I'm telling you, going up to New York, sometimes Brady just doesn't play as well. Maybe it's the blue helmets, if that makes sense to you. I want to look at last night's NFL Thursday Night Football. It was the Atlanta Falcons. They used defense, Big C, to knock off the Carolina Panthers. And I thought also a dirty play against Teddy Bridgewater. Someone kicked him in the knee. You know, he's had his knee surgically repaired. And then another player slammed into him while he was on the ground. But Tampa showed Tampa plays an attitude with their defense. But the same conference, the Falcons played with an attitude defense last night. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Falcons, I mean, when you look at this team, Charlton, they could easily be 5-2 on the season.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of unfortunate losses that this team has suffered. When you look at Detroit, you look at Dallas, Charlton.
Yep.
And there was one other game that came down to the wire that they lost also. They could easily be 5-2 on the season. They have an offensive team with talent.
Yeah.
Their defense is the struggling point of that organization. And that's where they need to fix things at, is on the defense, because that loss to Detroit, you gave up 75 yards in a minute and 8 seconds. You can't put that on an offense, but they did business within the division.
Yep.
And now they're trying to get back in the hunt. Now they're, trying to move up in that division and catch those leaders.
Yeah, they're 2-6. The Carolina falls to 3-5. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones in a defense allowed just 3 points in the second half. And to think about what the Falcons did in a 25-17 win, Ryan threw for 281 yards while rushing for a touchdown. Julio Jones caught 7 passes, 137 yards. And the Falcons, who've won 2 out of their last 3 games after an 0-5 start, they're a lot like the L.A. Chargers. They've just been snake-bitten, if that makes sense to you. But if they can ever get things on top, I'm not saying they're going to compete for the division championship, but they should at least finish respectable. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to think about that division. You got Tampa, who's cream of the crop right now.
Yeah.
New Orleans nipping at Tampa's heels, and they got to play both of those teams, Charlton. They're not going to challenge for the division title.
No, but they do. They want Arthur Blank. Did you see Arthur Blank was wearing a red suit last night? I mean, that brother has, I know he has a lot of money, and billionaires can dress the way they want to, but Arthur Blank, he must have some suits that are custom made. I'm sure he never has to go to the mall. They come to him before they make his suits. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think Arthur got his dates mixed up. I think he thought it was Christmas and it was Halloween weekend.
Well, the Falcons, they gave him a Christmas present last night in a win. They just happened to go up to Carolina to get it. So congratulations to all the great teams in the NFL. And I know there's a lot of guys looking forward to seeing if they can get into this COVID-19 season. There's a lot of players with injuries too, but we wish everybody the very best. I want to ask you something. Is that we'll go back and forth with some college football and some NFL. But last night, when I thought about turning off my phone to go to sleep, I saw some news before I turned it off, Big C. It was NCAA college football, number 1 Clemson, and their quarterback, also the number 1 draft prospect, Trevor Lawrence, tests positive for COVID-19. So they have backup prep All-American DJ Ukulele. He led California St. John Bosco High School in Southern California to the Prep National Football Championship last year. And he's going to start this game. But give me your feeling on college football, Trevor Lawrence. Everybody's saying we're going to play no matter what. Give me your thoughts on how they feel now, Big C. Your thoughts.
Well, COVID-19 doesn't discriminate, Charlton. There was no reason that COVID would bypass Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you can't think that because a guy got press clippings that he's going to be immune. Clemson has enough talent on their roster to handle this week's game, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're not concerned about that. The overall health of Lawrence is the number 1 concern. They're trying to get him healthy and hopefully get him back for the Notre Dame game, but they'll win this game handily this weekend.
Yeah, they're playing in Boston College. So Clemson football team, COVID-19 outbreak during the summer. Remember, Big C? In the summer, they had an outbreak before the season started when players returned to campus for voluntary workouts, and they were tested. And so everybody's looking at, Coach Sweeney, how you going to handle this? But Dabu knows they recruited some of the top players in the country, and players will follow. Lawrence, when you think about it, maybe the best college football player in the country, depending on who you ask. Heisman Trophy contender for the number 1 team in the country. Through 6 games this year, he's completed 71% of his passes, 1,833 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And this is the same team that was only knocked off in the last 3 years by the team that won the national championship last year in LSU. You really feel they won't miss a beat, Big C? Your thoughts?
They're not playing a team that's going to win the national championship, Charlton. Clemson just has too much talent. They still have Travis Etienne in the backfield, who is as good as any running back in the country right now. And that defense, they'll shut down Boston College. Yeah,
they'll shut down Boston College. We'll see. Doug Flutie might come out of... I hear Doug Flutie was down there doing some push-ups too, Big C, over in Boston. So we'll see what happens in that game. Doug Flutie might be coming out of the locker room for the Boston College going up against Clemson. I want to take a look at Big C's college football weekend coming up. It should be a lot of good football games. There's some games being played tonight. Minnesota's 0-1 at Maryland, 0-1. East Carolina's 1-3 at Tulsa, 2-1. And Hawaii is traveled up into Wyoming. Hawaii's 1-0 and Wyoming's 0-1. I want to go into the matchup. We talked about Boston College 4-2. They're at number 1 Clemson 6-0. That's a noontime kickoff on ABC Sports, and Clemson's favorite by 31. That might be a little bit too much with a new quarterback coming in. But I want to take you to number 5 Georgia, Big C, down there in the South. Georgia's 3-1. I know they got beat down by Alabama. They were shut out in the second half. But they're on the road to Kentucky. That's 2-3. It's a noontime kickoff on the SEC network. And Georgia's favorite by 14.5 over them good old boys, Big C. Your thoughts?
And that's a solid bet. Kentucky lost its quarterback with a wrist injury. When you think about Georgia, they're still smarted from that loss to Alabama.
Yeah.
So they're going to take it out on the double blue down there, Charlton.
Yeah, they'll try to take it out. Bring their own Gatorade if that makes sense to you. In a big game that may not seem that big right now, Memphis is 3-1. They're at number 7 Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 4-0. They just knocked off SMU down in Texas. You know when you can go into Texas and win with those officials, you have to be a good team. And Cincinnati's favored by 6.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is one of the interesting games of the non-Power 5 schools, Charlton.
Yep.
This is when you think about those teams that are trying to get to that bowl game on New Year's Day, Charlton.
Yeah.
Cincinnati leads the rankings right now in that, and they've had a tough run against Memphis the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Memphis has a high-powered offense, and they can knock off anybody that they play. They knocked off Central Florida, Charlton, in one of the best shootouts of the year.
Yep.
This is a game that Cincinnati can't take any breaks in if they expect to stay undefeated.
Yeah, Memphis might be, their record's 3-1, but they may be even better than the SMU team that Cincinnati beat, so we'll see what happens. Michigan State, Big C, they're 0-1. It's the battle for Michigan. I'm not talking about Trump and Biden. I'm talking about Michigan State 0-1. They're at number 14, Michigan. That's 1-0. It's a noontime kickoff on Fox Sports. And Michigan looked pretty good last week, Big C, and they're playing in a game where they're playing their rival. And it's a 24.5 point favorite over their rival. I remember Michigan was about to get into the playoffs a couple years ago, and Michigan State blocked the punt. 24.5 is a lot to give them against their in-state rival, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it is, Charlton, but you can easily say that Michigan State will be 0-2 after this game.
Yeah, especially if they, no hanging chads, if that makes sense. They're hoping that Donald Trump is 0-2 after Tuesday in Michigan. Is all fair and level war. I want to bring it to another game that has a lot of writing on the wall, because people don't think about college football the way they should, maybe. But you have number 4 Notre Dame. I think they're overrated in my opinion, but they are 5-0. I'm still thinking about the Louisville narrow win. They're at Georgia Tech. That's 2-4. I think Clemson scored like 70 points against that same Georgia Tech on that same surface, Big C. This is a 3:30 kickoff ABC time on, I think it's going to be ABC Sports. It's on grass. I want to ask you a thought. Notre Dame's favored by 19.5. But Clemson scored 70. Is this a game of the win margin, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Notre Dame, probably played their best game of the season last week, Charlton. And they're coming into a Georgia Tech team that is under-talented and still struggling, trying to put together a pro-style offense. Notre Dame will cover. Notre
Dame will cover, but they probably won't score 70. That'd be too much to ask for a team to put up what Clemson did. And this is a game that no one thought it would be. Number 19, Indiana. Big C, they're 1-0. They're at Rutgers, which is 1-0. I don't think Rutgers been undefeated to start the season ever, but they are right now, at least so far. So hold on to it. It's a 3:30 kickoff East Coast time on the Big Ten Network. And Indiana, with an upset over Penn State last week, they're getting 10, Big C. You're buying it. Your thoughts?
Well, they had a mulligan last week against Penn State, and no one expected for both of these teams to come in, Charlton.
Yep.
Not having a loss.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. I like Rutgers in this game because I think it was too much of an emotional high for Indiana all week, escaping out of that game against Penn State.
Yep.
I like Rutgers to go 2-0.
Yeah, it's nice when you get some home cooking, because Indiana, they cooked those Nittany Lions with the field goal. I mean, they cooked them by having somebody up in the press box that didn't want to review well enough to see if the player got in, but it's all fair and level war. Another big game in the South, Big C. LSU, defending national champions, they're 2-2. They had Auburn. Auburn's 3-2. It's a 3:30 p.m. kickoff on CBS Sports, and LSU is favored by 3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think that Auburn has used up all its rabbit's foot, Charlton, going into this game.
Yeah.
They've been given 2 games by the officials this year, Charlton, that they should not have won. And Brennan should be back at quarterback for LSU. And when Brennan was playing, Charlton, he had more yards passing in the first 3 games of the year than any LSU quarterback in history.
Yeah, it should be a toss-up. We'll see what happens. This game down in Texas, just like you talked about, I think you said Texas had 9 million voters so far. We're still 4 days away from the election, Big C. Texas 3-2. They're at number 6, Oklahoma State. That's 4-0. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports East Coast time. And Oklahoma State is favored by 3.5, and they're the last hope, in my opinion, for the Big 12 to get into the playoffs, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Oklahoma State has an outstanding defense. They have to do a lot to confuse Sam Ellinger. They must keep him in the pocket and not allow him to run because he's the difference maker in that Texas offense when he utilizes his legs. But this Oklahoma State offense has been struggling this year, and if they can put some points on the board, their defense might be able to hold off Texas.
Yeah, would that put more pressure on Texas deciding if they still want to stick with the coach they got, Big C, or would they say, hey, we weren't expecting to beat them anyway? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look from Tom Herman's perspective, who else is out there that can replace him?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how things are nowadays in the landscape of college football. This is a year of uncertainty.
It's a year of uncertainty, Big C. What's not uncertain is Boise State 1-0. They're at the Air Force 1-1, and that's a 6 o'clock kickoff on the CBS Sports Network. And Boise State, and they're getting their respect from the pollsters. They're favored by 13.5. A big game down south, Big C, is you look at your friends from Alabama. They're 5-0. They're at home playing Mississippi State. That's 1-3. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Alabama's favored by 31.5. Nick Saban's always got a false positive on his COVID test. We know a lot of things are going on down south, Big C. Did the good old boys from Mississippi have any chance of staying within 31.5 against Alabama, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it just all depends on how many interceptions that C.J. Costello throws. I mean, you know Mac Jones is going to have another big game for Alabama.
Yep.
That Alabama defense is always outstanding. They're going to miss Jerry Jeudy, but the depth on offense, they'll find a replacement.
They'll find a replacement. Another big game going up north. You look at number 3 Ohio State. They're 1-0 on the season. They look very good against Nebraska. They're at number 17 Penn State that got robbed in Indiana. You ever get robbed going through Indiana, Big C? They got robbed in Indiana, so they're 0-1. They're smarting right now. It's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC Sports East Coast time. Ohio State is getting 11.5 against a team that must be pretty upset, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I did get robbed in Indiana one time in the training camp. So I was pulled over doing 114 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
I had to pay the ticket on the spot, Charlton, which was $1,200. So I did get robbed in Indiana.
I didn't know.
You know, when you look at this game, Charlton,
yeah.
Franklin, you know, is not going to be happy after this game with Penn State starting out 0-2.
Yeah, he may be happy when he gets back to Happy Valley, but he's not going to be happy when those nuts finish doing what they're going to do to him upstairs. I got to ask him, I did not know that airplanes could fly only 140 miles per hour, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Charlton, you know, when you're trying to get off the runway, you got to have the traction on the ground.
Yeah, you can't say you were doing the speed limit. It's all fair and level. We're a couple more college football games. Navy 3-3 at number 23, SMU. That's 5-1. It's a 7:30 kickoff on ESPN2. SMU's favorite by 13.5. I want to take you to one more game in the SEC. It's Arkansas 2-2 at number 8, Texas A&M. That's 3-1 on the season. It's a 7:30 kickoff East Coast time on SEC Network. And Texas A&M's favored by 12.5. Are they still, in your opinion, able to compete with the big boys of the SEC? Big C, your thoughts?
Yes, they are. And Arkansas has been surprising thus far this season. They got robbed down at Alabama. I mean, not Alabama, but Auburn when they recovered a fumble, and they said it wasn't a fumble.
Yep.
And it was clearly that the quarterback threw the ball backwards instead of throwing it forward, and that would have been another victory for Arkansas. But when you look at this game, A&M, you know, had their biggest win of the season against Florida a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
I think that Kellen Mond is playing too well. He's going to outplay, you know, the quarterback from Arkansas, Franklin, that came from the University of Florida, the transfer, Felice Franks, brother.
Yeah.
And so A&M will get the win for Jimbo Fisher.
Couple of more games. Nevada, they're 1-0 at UNLV on 1. That's a 10:30 p.m. kickoff East Coast time on Fox Sports 1. Nevada's favored by 13.5. And then the last college football game I want to talk about with you, we have number 24 Oklahoma. They're 3-2 on the season. For most people, you don't get ranked when you're 3-2, considering how they lost. They're at Texas Tech, that's 2-3. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff, East Coast time on Fox Sports. And Oklahoma's getting some respect. They're favored by 14.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Texas Tech has been really inconsistent offensively. They're on their second-string quarterback. Spencer Rattler seems to have settled himself in Oklahoma. They should walk away with this victory.
Yeah, they should walk away with the victory. We'll see what happens, Big C. I want to bring something up to you that might make people wonder. I was listening. People got to get out and vote. It's always important to vote. 4 days left voting. And I was talking to my mother about this to see how the Republicans in the Trump campaign, they're trying to block people from voting. It's crazy because people wouldn't think that because sometimes they just don't have time for politics. But the Trump campaign, they have sued. That means going to court to prevent the expanded use of the ballot drop boxes in Ohio. They've sought to shoot down an attempt to expand the absentee ballot in New Hampshire, Big C. In Philadelphia, his campaign is videotaping voters as they return ballots. In Nevada, is suing to force election officials in Nevada, a Democratic-heavy Clark County, to more rigorously examine the ballot signatures and discrepancies to try to disqualify people from voting. And that's not how you make America a democratic country, Big C, when the president is trying to sue citizens in states so they can't vote. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, this is what white people do, try to keep people of color from voting. It has happened throughout the history of America and ever since slavery has been abolished.
Yeah, a lot of people just get out to the polls. The states' rights will hopefully win out. But that good old boy is in court as people are going to his rallies, and he's trying to sue to stop some of them from voting because he thinks they won't vote for him. I want to congratulate Major League Baseball for not having age discrimination. Ageism, they say, oh, you're too old for whatever reason. But Major League Baseball, when I think about Tony La Russa, Big C, the media calls the hiring the dumbest decision that media voices concerned about the White Sox hiring of Tony La Russa, citing his traditionalist point of view compared to the team's young roster. I just told you that POTUS is suing to prevent people from voting. People that look like a lot of the athletes that Tony La Russa has managed over the years. Before he spent even an hour as a White Sox manager for the second time, La Russa addressed the intersection of his present and his past. 4 years ago, we know how horrible our country made a U-turn 4 years ago and went away from decency. When you heard about Colin Kaepernick first taking a knee, and that was protesting police brutality against African Americans. Many African Americans have helped La Russa win World Series championships. But La Russa, like a lot of other ignorant people, they unleashed this crazy thought that they were trying to disrespect the Constitution and the military and the American flag. I really question the sincerity of somebody like Colin Kaepernick. That was from the mouth of Tony La Russa. Put Colin Kaepernick through a lot of hell. Just like the birther garbage that Trump came up with put the Obama family through a lot of hell. Give me your feeling on how welcome La Russa is going to be back in Chicago managing baseball. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is racism as its finest, now running a major league team again. I know you praised La Russa yesterday for being hired in the championships that he had won, but you have to look beyond the facade of people at times. I mean, you got to turn beyond that first page of the book to see what somebody's really like. Tony La Russa straight up stated that he's racist in making that type of statement against a person who's fighting against social and racial injustice in America.
Yeah.
When you're a white millionaire, you don't have to worry about those things, Charlton. You don't have to worry about the things that your players worry about on your organization.
Yeah.
But here's Tony La Russa showing his true colors. And minorities don't appreciate that, whether they're black or Hispanic. And
Yeah.
you have both of those in baseball, but he lets you know where he stands. And if you look at the makeup of Tony La Russa's rosters as a manager in the major leagues, he hasn't had a lot of black players, Charlton.
No, he hasn't. I ask you this thought because he's managed, I think he's been part of the Angels organization. That's Orange County. You can say what you want to say, but it's not as diverse as a lot of other places he's managed. Like St. Louis is a very diverse but segregated city. Oakland is a very diverse city. And, he's had his runs with those organizations. Chicago's a very diverse but also racially segregated city. And it's amazing when a 76-year-old white man that has racist tendencies can get a job as a manager in baseball, and then you still have a lot of people of color that are looking for that opportunity, that one shining moment, and sometimes it just eludes them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the reason why he's white and he can get that job because he's racist, Charlton. The people that are in the room that are making the decisions look and act just like him. Don't ever think that they don't. When these decisions are made, Charlton, they are made by people who are just like each other. When Jerry Jones hired Mike McCarthy had more in common with Jerry Jones than what Marvin Lewis had in common with it.
Yeah.
So don't think that these people are not that way because they hold the title.
Yeah. It's all fair and level war. I know people got to get out and do their voting, and it doesn't matter. You're never going to have anyone agree on everything, but I just wanted people to pay attention to sometimes people that slam African Americans just for asking for equality and liberty and justice for all. And you have a president that's suing in what he thinks are heavily Democratic cities to stop American citizens from voting. And people say that Colin Kaepernick hates the American flag. He never tried to stop anyone from voting. Big C, some news came out for the Minnesota Vikings that they had a linebacker, Todd Davis, test positive for COVID-19. So I think that's going to keep him out of the game, obviously, that they're going to be playing this weekend with the Green Bay Packers. Any more concerned if he tests positive, they're going to have to do contact tracing for Kirk Cousins and everybody else on their team. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, by the time they get around to contact tracing, the game will have already been played. The NFL is going to limit the number of games that they delay or cancel this year, Charlton. They will always pull a player out, and they'll say that they can't do the contact tracing until after the game, but everybody's wearing the same wristband to know who's been in contact and where they've gone.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure that out, basically, even though they're just hide people. I'm going to ask you this thought. We talk about quarterbacks being beaten up. Would you believe Dallas Cowboys coach Mike McCarthy? He's not completely ruling out that Andy Dalton will start for the Eagles. Why would you do that? The guy's been banged up last week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he knows that this is the only chance he has to compete in the game is that he has a quarterback with some NFL experience because his rookie backup, he knows that he's in over his head. And Andy Dalton's in over his head also, but Samari Rolle made that, that observation earlier that you talked about.
Yeah.
That the NFL doesn't care about the health of players.
Yeah. Yeah, they care about the health of that bank account. It's all fair and level war. You want to know who has a really nice bank account? I mean, oftentimes, linemen are the guys that don't get paid a lot of money because people might say they're not worth it. But Baltimore Ravens, they signed left tackle Ronnie Stanley to a 5-year, $98 million contract extension. Big C, will that buy him a lot of Big C burgers? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it'll get him a lot of crab cakes there in Baltimore, Charlton. Wonderful inner harbor with great seafood.
Yeah, it's amazing how times have changed when an offensive lineman, all he got to do is stand there and block the guy in front of him. He didn't have to run for touchdowns. He didn't have to intercept passes. He didn't have to throw passes. He just got to block 300-pound men and keep them off the quarterbacks. And that's going to get him a $98 million extension. It's all fair in level war. I want to ask you one final thought that the great Dak Prescott that was injured in the ball game against the Giants of all people. Tom Brady, be careful playing against the Giants. Sometimes, well, he doesn't have to run the way Prescott did. But Dak Prescott says to rookie Ben DiNucci, go out there and do you. And then you have their coach saying, no, we're gonna go with the guy. They're gonna start a guy with a concussion. That's not looking too good. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that lets you know that they really have no game plan for Ezekiel Elliott, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're just going out there to play.
Yeah, that's so funny. When Jerry Jones said McCarthy's his guy, and he's gonna play a guy that's concussed. It doesn't make any sense. But it's all fair level war. I want to make sure people get out and vote. There's 4 days left before the election. And if you don't vote through this election, then I have no idea what to say to you. But you got to get out and vote. And believe me, your vote depends on it. It really does. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, movement again in Major League Baseball. The owners have approved the sale of the New York Mets to Steve Cohen for just under $2 billion. So now the New York Mets have an owner who can invest the money into that organization and hopefully make them a viable, challenging team in the National League East. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, first responders. You're always a viable team wherever you are.
Always a viable team. You guys, please get out and vote. Make sure that everybody you know can vote. It's worth it. Your vote is worth it. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please just pick up your phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.